really
We
good
both
shirt.
got a good vibe going on. We have a good vibe going on at the One Brick at a Time podcast. No, we didn't die. We are back. I told you we'd be back. We were just very, very busy. At least I was very busy. I don't know about Alex, but I was all over the country, and then finals week happened. I'm covering for time. He's talking to his girlfriend right now.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, I appreciate people being patient. I don't know if people were like begging for another episode to come out or not, but
Oh, it's people been up in arms.
I know.
People rioted.
No, I had finals, and I'm just gonna like tell people like I was. It would not have been a good episode if we would have been able to squeeze one out in the last 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
But we're here now, and we've got not as much stuff to talk about considering the layoff. Like I'm kind of okay. I appreciate the country at large not doing anything ridiculous while we were unable to record, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Alex, I'll let you. Do you have anything to share?
Life's been lifing. You know how it goes, but we're here now. Yeah, I'm excited to touch on, a few things. I think for today we're covering tariffs, the volatility of the market, important local elections and why local elections are important, and then lastly, a little fun story for us that ties to us. So we'll do that, and yeah, I'm excited to get started. Do you want to get started with tariffs?
Yeah, and I don't want to go. We did tariffs in our last episode,
Yeah.
and probably the one before that, so I don't want to go too crazy with it. Just some things to point out so people can stay educated on it as we go. A lot of the people that I listen to, your mileage may vary, but the thing that I've noticed with a lot of the commentary that I think makes a lot of sense is at this point it's not the tariffs themselves or whatever the economic policy is that's going to be a problem. What could be an issue is the volatility of people not being able to project out more than a few months at a time, right? So if you're a small business owner, if you don't know what the tariff rate's going to be on Canada, for example, between now or whenever this 90-day pause ends,
Yeah.
it throws a wrench in your, do I order extra supplies now because the tariff rates, maybe this is as low as it's going to be and it's going to be worse later? Do I wait and hold off and see if the tariff gets lifted? And there's no right answer to that, right? People just don't know what's going on. It seems like the administration's plan is to just do a bilateral trade deal with all 193 countries in the world, which is a lot.
Yeah.
It's the inverse of the European Union system, which is let's have the same policy with all 40 odd countries, and this makes it extremely easy. If you're Guinness in Ireland, your packaging doesn't have to change whether you're shipping to Germany or France or Spain or whatever it may be. It's all one customs union. Whereas I think both for American importers and exporters, tariffs aside, I just think the system of like, let's have all these separate trade deals with everybody, which I suppose that was kind of what it was before, but it's tough for people to project how much they need to order. Last month, we saw, 30% of what we normally see in terms of traffic from China on shipping vessels. So that means 70% of those products just didn't come to the United States. Now that tariff rate is lower to 30%, we've seen the amount of stuff coming from China double compared to what it was this time last year. So we're just going to probably see really large fluctuations in the way some of these economic policies flesh out. And again, it's almost the policy itself is a little bit besides the point. It's the fact that everything is so swingy and up in the air, and the volatility is so weird. I'm kind of going on a rant. I'm just going to finish off. I got one last point, and then I'll let you just ask me anything about anything, Alex.
Yeah.
We talk about the market quite a bit, and I'm trying to maybe push us away from looking at this as a market thing too much. So April was the worst April the market's ever had since the Great Depression. Again, you can understand why. Like, I wouldn't get too freaked out about that. But what was kind of odd is typically when people dive out of the market, right? They're not invested in stocks because they're too volatile or whatever it may be. They will switch their investment into treasury bonds, which we've talked about. I was going to say friend of the show, the United States debt. I'd say enemy of the show. I don't know how many podcasts have enemies of the show, but I think you and I are pretty united on our hatred of the American debt. But basically what they do is they'll buy treasury bonds, which is basically buying American debt. So often, when stocks go up, bonds go down, and then inverse, right? When the stock market's crazy,
A re-
treasury bonds are a safe
yeah.
bet. If you're someone who invests and that's how you make your money, you don't want your money
Im-
standing still. That's the worst case scenario.
Important fun fact on this too. He's exactly right. Typically, when stocks go up, bonds go down, and vice versa. Basically, why they tell you to buy bonds and stocks in a diversified portfolio, because bonds defend against deflation when stocks defend against inflation. So they're
Absolutely.
literally like inverses.
So
Just a
what we
fun
saw during
tidbit.
April, I think this is also more or less corrected itself, but treasury bonds also got more expensive for the United States. They were more valuable because people were pulling out of both. Rarely do we
Mm.
see the stock market go down and the bond market get worse as well. It means people were either investing elsewhere in Europe, for example. I was talking about my German ETFs, on the last episode. Or they're just holding on to straight up cash, which is not good. Or people invest in gold. Gold did really well when stuff hits the fan. People like to invest in gold because it has this kind of property of being sort of bulletproof relative to other things. Bitcoin also had a little bit of a surge. I wouldn't. Let's give it a couple economic downturns before I will necessarily sign off on Bitcoin as being sort of in a similar boat as gold, as something people can invest in. But it's just weird to see, the treasury market not react positively to a down market. So I just think that just goes to show people whose job it is to, do the economy and invest and do all those things. They're having to make really interesting decisions. One last fun fact. A lot of the investment that we've seen over the last couple of months has actually been a lot of retail investment, which means it's less uh, Chase or whoever it may be, but it's individuals. A lot of the people who are still getting involved in the market have been people like Alex and I, as opposed to big banks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, they've
There's a
been
very
the large organizations have been much more conservative, lowercase c conservative, not like Republican. Okay, Alex, that was a lot for me. I'll let you get in with a lot.
No, we actually had a bunch of conversations about this. This is something that I probably have more experience on than political science in the same way that
Yeah,
you
totally
do,
go for it.
but it's interesting because I think you get this frustrating narrative that whoever's president directly always long term affects the stock market. And that in some ways that's kind of true, but in a lot of ways it's not. The market is a reactionary device. It's not so much a mirror of what's happening in the government. So basically, when tariffs go into place, certain markets actually do better, and then certain markets actually do worse. They're just different than the ones that were before. Whereas, like, some of the narrative that I heard when Biden was president, when we had downturns in the market, were just stupid. It's like, that's not how that works. He doesn't, like, maybe over the course of a week or a month or a day, the president can really affect the market. But long term, that's just the market adjusting and adapting. The same thing applied here that I thought was really interesting of like, the market's higher than it was than before Trump got elected, right? Like the S&P 500 is tracking higher than it was when he got elected, but not as high as the 2 week or the 1 week after he got elected.
Right.
Everybody, thinking he was the big boon of economic growth.
Well, and the market should always be going up and to the right. You know what I mean?
Long
Like
term,
the general
always,
trend. It's like
and it
just having
always,
a positive market growth. I don't
yeah.
think is anything to write home about. But
No, and it always has. Long
Right.
term, it always has. A good thing to note is a bull market, which means a down market or a market where people are feeling bullish, lasts on average 11 months. But to people in the moment, they think it's a disaster. The economy is tanking, the sky is falling. And then I heard a lot of people making arguments that like that downturn from April to May destroyed people's retirement. And we had this conversation where like that's not a very accurate
That's pretty
thing to say.
hyperbolic, yeah.
It's super hyperbolic because if you think about it, we've had, and you can even give credit to Biden for this or whoever you want, right? But in the past few years, especially since COVID created such a deep pit to climb out of, if you invested near the end of that, if you had money to invest, whether it was your stimulus or something else, you have seen such unbelievable growth. Mm-hmm. Like even in the lowest point in our April dip because of the tariffs and all the reaction to that, the market was still up 80% over 2 years. Like unbelievable growth. So the only way your retirement could have been destroyed is if you started it April 1st, 2025.
Right, yeah.
That's the only way that your retirement could have been destroyed.
Absolutely.
Realistically.
And I'll even come back at it from the political angle, just to put a bow on it, because I think that's really well described. The market is very much tied to vibes, right? And it's not only vibes. I don't want people to get that impression, because then I have people take this idea too far and they say like money is fake, and that drives me insane too. Um, but the tariffs that we're under currently, right? I think if these tariffs had been announced today, the market would not be going up, right? If this was just the tariff package that was put in place and we didn't start with the Liberation Day, wild tariffs across the board or whatever it may be, I don't think it would be a rebound. I think if this was just the starting point, the market would be down. The thing is, people are reacting to it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be, but it's better. So the market's going up because better is better. It's not necessarily good, but better. Yeah, I mean, the market's a good tool. It's a good tool to understand sentiment of investors and stuff like that, but it's not the end all be all. And that's, I don't know. Now, at this point, there's talks about this deal that we have with the UK. The details I saw, they're nothing to write home about. China, we've gone down from effectively an embargo to, 30%, which is actually pretty close to where it was.
Yeah, I think it's like 10% higher, right, or something like that.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy. It's not. Yeah, it's doable. If you're someone, maybe if you're a small business that has like really really tight margins, you're probably still going to be affected. But the American importers can work with that, right, more or less. So we'll see. We'll see how this all turns out. Yeah. So we are halfway to a recession under the very strict definition that it is 2 quarters of negative growth. Last quarter we were down like 0.3% or something. Your bar should not be 0. You would hope every quarter you'd grow at least a couple percent, right? So again, think of it. It should be going up, right? But 2 quarters in a row of negative growth technically is the literal definition of a recession. We'll see if we have that. I think we're probably, the tariffs and all that stuff, I think we probably have an opportunity to turn it around. Yeah. We'll see what happens after 90 days. I don't know that's the thing, like, again, with the uncertainty, it's what's a 90-day pause mean?
It seems so arbitrary at this point.
Right.
Because he could just go, tomorrow he can go, never mind the 90 days. Right. And then in 90 days he could say, actually, it's 120. I just changed my mind. Like, it's become so volatile that we can't really, like you exactly said, and
it's unclear what we're drilling down to in the first place. Like, what are we trying to achieve at the end of all of this? Like, what's a better trade deal? You know what I mean?
You need specifics. Whenever you say, like, the trade deal's great, it's like if we get back and we did all this for like a 1% return over the next 10 years, like, okay. Like, but if it's actually, we just need details to really know if anything is actually effective.
We need a thing that we're trying to accomplish here.
Exactly. I have a question for you. I'm curious if they talk about this in political science, because I don't know how to weigh this. People sometimes use the market to determine that the economy's in the shit. And you hear that all the time. It's like, the economy's terrible. The S&P is XYZ. And it's like, well, what if unemployment is also down? And what if wages are up? And this is up, but the S&P's down, right? It's like, I think sometimes people get too one-track minded about the economy doing well, but I actually don't actually know all the best things to measure, because it's not as simple as, is the market up or down? Because, like, the market was crazy for the past 2 years. Just you could not lose money, but also houses have never been more expensive, right? And inflation was never higher. Like, so how do you actually measure that?
No, that's a really excellent question. I think you do your best to be holistic, right? And you want to try to look at all these things. And to that point, it's really hard being a government if your goal is to manage the economy, which is why I think the best economic presidents, I would say, like Clinton, I'll even give Trump one. I'll say Trump won on this. Why not? I'll give him some credit. Didn't really just do a lot. Right, they had a hot economy and they just let that thing ride. And they didn't mess with it. Right.
When you say Trump won, you mean first term?
First term. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. No, I don't know if you meant WON won something, because he talks about winning.
That does make sense. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, first term Trump. Got
it. If it's me, kind of depending how you're looking at it, right? Like if we're looking at it in terms of like American elections, I think unemployment will kill you. If you have high unemployment, say like probably 6%, you're getting a little worried. You could probably carry 5% okay. but it's probably going to be something that'll start popping up in debates and stuff like that. 6% and above is when you're going to really feel that as an incumbent party. And inflation, I would say, is maybe a half step down. If you gave me the option, I'd rather have high inflation and low unemployment. Just like people not having jobs is just a much worse look than things being 10% more expensive. But people do feel that. I think gas prices are overrated in terms of having a political impact because they do fluctuate so much. I think, gas right now I'd say is relatively inexpensive, and you never hear no one's ever voted for someone because gas is cheap, right? Like, they'll vote against high gas prices, but they won't vote for someone. And then you have these other things, like a big issue in the United States, but especially in a lot of the developed European countries, that you nailed it, is like housing and stuff, right? Which is like, where do you put that on this spectrum? I'd actually say markets are pretty low on the list. If I'm a government and I'm worried about XYZ, again, because I think markets are more of a vibe thing, right? If all those other things are going well, you would expect the market to be fine too. It'll kind of follow the leader across the other stuff, but you don't necessarily want the markets. The markets aren't going to be the thing that like fix all those other problems, right?
Yeah. I feel like the headline there is like, don't base your opinion on the economy based on what the stock market says.
Absolutely.
Like if it's crashing aggressively, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's the Great Depression, then that's a little different. But again, all those other things were crazy during. The problem with the Great Depression wasn't the stock market, right? It was the 13% unemployment. That was the issue.
Yeah.
That's how you get Hoover bills, right?
Yeah. Right now I looked it up too. We're looking at about 4.1%, which is 0.2% higher than last year, same time.
No, absolutely. I mean, Biden and even again Trump first time, both had exceptionally low unemployments. So that's part of the inflation story as well. If you have low unemployment, you have high inflation. Unfortunately, those two things are like inversely related to each other. If you have low unemployment, high employment is the other way to say that, I guess. Then the labor market's tougher for businesses, so they have to pay people more. If you have more money running around the economy, things cost more, but you can charge more.
Scary number. I'm looking back. April 2020, 14.8% unemployment.
Yeah.
That is crazy to think about.
This is the thing that I think when history books look back at Joe Biden, I think they are going to say you guys massively underappreciated the dealing with COVID part of his administration. Like, people now remember being annoyed about masks and stuff, but the fact that we didn't go into like a full tailspin, particularly when you look at the United States relative to peer countries like the UK, like Germany, like France, all of which are still like, they're just now starting to get their economies back and going again.
Yeah.
The fact that we bounced back relatively quickly, and we added a bunch onto the deficit, but like, I would argue we're in a good position to work out of that if we had the political will.
Somebody said, I forgot who it was, they had a really good point. They were talking like, oh, everybody's like really critical of like what we added to the deficit over COVID and the stimulus stuff, and they're like really harsh about it. And his response was like, okay, well, what was the alternative?
Right.
Just let everything crash and burn? Like, yeah, it's not ideal to be in that situation in the first place, but then to be upset about a response that was the best thing you could think of at the time, maybe. Right. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we also wish we were just not in a pandemic in the first place. That would have been.
You could probably, like, there's details you could probably be critical of. I think the last round of stimulus was probably a bit much.
Yeah.
Even I benefited from it. The extent that, like, student loans just got put, like, on hold forever was just, like,
yeah.
That was, those things that if you wanted to tie that to, like, the extra high inflation, I think is a fair argument. I think there's probably other factors. But yeah, that's what I got on the economy. Is that all did you have any thoughts you want to get out? That was a good question.
No, I think that's a good way to think about it. Just try to consider more than just the stock market when thinking about how the economy is performing. It's much more complex. And let's go on to our next topic, which actually just falls right into it.
Yeah, let's talk...
what, volatility or local elections?
Volatility was in reference to the market.
I figured. Didn't know if you had any more to add there.
Not local so elections. They've all been local elections. I guess the more appropriate term would be off-cycle elections.
Okay.
So what's an off-cycle election? An off-cycle election is anything that doesn't happen on a presidential election cycle or a midterm cycle. So we have these two big election dates every 4 years is, I guess, the actual way to finish that sentence. Every 2 years we have a major election, right? Obviously, the presidential election is the big one, and then the House of Representatives and the third of the Senate pop up in
Okay.
midterms. Most like governor races and statewide races will happen at those times as well.
Oh, okay.
Virginia, and I think there's one more. I know Virginia is one of them. Are weird because I think it might be New Jersey. Uh, they do like their governor race in between for some reason. It's a big deal amongst people who work in politics because they're the only show in town. So they tend to get a lot of media coverage because like they're happening and there's no other politics on TV, right? Like you'll
Yeah.
watch a terrible if you're a big basketball fan, you will watch a terrible basketball game if it's the only game that's on TV, right?
Yeah, you just
Except for actually
love
Virginia, a lot of
basketball.
those elections are quite good. Um, but I've noticed some headlines that I just want to talk about because I think there's some interesting demographics taking place that I think could be telling as we look forward to 2026
Mm-hmm.
in the midterm elections. So, uh, a, 3 elections have happened in Iowa called special elections, and these are elections where like someone dies. You see it after a presidential election because people will get put in the cabinet. So if you have Marco Rubio, for example, become Secretary of State, you need to have an election to fill his seat, right? So these are called special elections. And in all of them, Democrats have been dominating. I mean, it's been in absolute, even if they haven't won, the flip from the November election, if we go by like what Donald Trump did relative to Kamala Harris, to the numbers they've been putting up have been like astronomical. I'm talking about 30-point flips, like almost on the nose. So there were a couple that happened really early in Iowa, like weeks after, where Democrats, this was even like before the tariffs, where Democrats brought back 30 points, right? So if Trump had won 70 to 30, right? Now the Republican was only winning like 55 to 45.
Mm.
So we're seeing huge Democrat overrepresentation in a lot of these local elections. And as a Democrat, I just want to throw a little cold water on this as we get closer to 2026. I think it could suggest the potential that Democrats have, but I also think it actually suggests a lot of the limitations and tells a lot about where the party is right now. Um, in really timely, because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but our hometown, kind of, Omaha, just had a mayoral election like 2 days ago. Did you see the news on this, Alex?
Not at all.
Gene
No.
Souther got beat.
Huh.
I know. If you're not watching on video, Alex just gave me some surprised eyebrows.
That is
Uh,
frightening.
she's been mayor of Omaha since I can remember.
Yeah, for the longest time.
Yeah, like I think it's 12 years.
Yeah.
She won that seat by 27 points in 2021.
And was there like a any specific reason? Like, and
She
besides,
lost or why she won by so much last time.
other than the point you made, did she do anything to hurt her chances, or was it just like
The rail car
general?
thing is pretty unpopular. For those of you guys
Okay.
who are not informed on local Omaha elections, which actually probably not that many people who listen to this, there's probably a lot of people from Omaha. One of the big, we're finally getting some semblance of public transportation, but we just did it in the most worthless way possible.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
that
a
sounds like
rail
Omaha.
car that runs from like the cute downtown part of Omaha to Midtown, which is like effectively the same thing. It's just
Yeah,
places that
it's
are
the same
really
thing.
well put together and have nice restaurants and shopping and stuff. So like
That's all it
there's
is.
no the amount of people who need to go from one of those areas to the other area is like very, very small.
Yeah,
But we're insisting on building this like rail car. You know,
it's
like
not really public transportation. It's just if you're
Yes.
having a night out and don't want to drive, get on this thing.
yes. And
Yeah.
also to this very specific place, right?
Yeah, only two places too. In the whole city, you get two places you can go to.
So it's
That's
very
funny.
unpopular. My conspiracy theory, this is not validated by anything, but I think she's like heavily in the pockets of a lot of the construction companies around Omaha.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and they're always building stuff for the city. So I don't know
Always.
if what's happening there, but it's some of it's been good. Like the new library is fine, but that's just the thing. Like there's so much construction going on.
That city's growing a lot. Yeah, but anyway,
She got
local
hammered by
elections.
10 points. So she went from beating her prior opponent by 27 points. So that'd be like what, 20, 30, what, 35 to 55? Like 30. God, I can't do math at all. 35 to 55 would be 20. It'd be 35 to 65 ish, right?
Okay.
Percentage wise. So pretty big margin, right? Like that's very safe. She lost by 10. So that means we flipped 37 points towards Democrats in this local city election. Thing one is I find that I think politicians' half life in that particular part of the country is pretty aggressive. I think like once you've just been there for a long time, people in Omaha do get it like just tired of seeing your face. So I think a
It's
little
very purple. It's a very purple city
it's
too.
very purple city.
Yeah.
The president always does well there. Like the Democrat always does well in presidential elections, but like
Yeah.
we
Major
haven't
city.
had a Democrat House of Representatives member out of there for like 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, Very strange district, very good district. Like you have to be a good politician to win there. But a lot of this, I think, also just has to do with like who Democrats are in this moment, which is they have an enormous education advantage, and those are the type of people to show up for normal races.
Non-presidential.
So like
Yeah.
because people get hit so hard with the midterms on TV, with the presidential election, you get way higher turnout. But in all these lower turnout races where you might not even know, I didn't even know Omaha was having an election and I'm from there, right? I feel like I'm plugged in enough that it should have come up, right? Um, but because Democrats are like the more engaged group, that's maybe a better word than education. It's the two tend to dovetail. But because Democrats are more engaged, like they've been absolutely cleaning up in these elections, I think only because of the fact that they know that they're happening, right? These are the type of people to like want to be on the email list and find out
Yeah.
about things. And so it'll be curious to see as we go forward, like how much of this effect that we're seeing in these off-cycle elections that don't have a ton of publicity, how much of this effect is tied to are Democrats just now the type of people that show up to this type of thing? Or is this actually a huge rebuttal of Donald Trump, Republicans, et cetera, et cetera? Like, does this, I'm sure some of it does have to do with policy. Like, people are hearing about tariffs and they're nervous or whatever it may be, and they're going out and voting their mind. But a lot of it, I think, just has to be like, I should spend some time now that I'm in the summer looking up like turnout numbers and see if there's just like a bump in turnout or if it seems like the same amount of people turned out and then just like flipped from one candidate to the other. Uh, Kind of tough to do because it could be both in some ways. Any thoughts or questions on that? And does that make sense?
You kind of read my mind. I figured it would just be both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just mean like, does that make sense in terms of like why Democrats are doing well in these like
Yeah, it does.
okay.
It does. There, you have to really give a shit to know these elections are happening
Yes.
and vote in them. Whereas like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, they flood you with the big boys that so like and even non-informed people hear
Right.
about them and it can go vote.
Right. It's stuff people don't have opinions on, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
these races in Iowa that flip so hard are Iowa House of Representatives races. Like, I think the vote counts were like 5,000 to 3,000 or something like that. This massive,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was insane.
You've seen way more people in a football stadium.
Yes, no, seriously, that's a good way
Like,
to think about it. Like, if you think of
yeah.
your favorite college football team, the amount of people voting in these elections could fit into those stadiums many times over.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so interesting.
But yeah, I would just say like so if you see headlines that say like Democrats blow away or Democrats make this huge thing. As a Democrat myself, I am optimistic. Like I would rather win by a lot than lose by a lot.
Lose by a lot?
sure.
Yeah.
But is this gonna translate into midterms, into like anything in terms of national elections? It remains to be seen. I haven't been impressed by Democratic messaging since the election.
Yeah.
I think our leadership sucks. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer just aren't like great leadership for the moment. They're game managers, right? If we had, a decent majority in both of those spots, I think they would be fine. I think we would be good, but that's not where the Democratic Party is right now. There's just no. If I started to see like an actual Democratic message, particularly around things like economic ideas, not even necessarily not labor, but talking about things like housing prices, going after like they've been pretty vocal about like the Medicaid thing. We talked about in I think our very first episode how a lot of the stuff that was going to happen during the Trump administration was going to happen in the first 90 or 100 days. We just hit that checkpoint. The only thing I mentioned that episode that hasn't happened yet is the reconciliation bill. They haven't pushed that through yet, and they're taking their time a little bit on it. But a big reason is like one of the ways to try to afford the tax cuts that are inside that bill is with a huge Medicaid cut. And so like Democrats can do that. Like that's one thing that they will be able to do consistently is just say like, here's a bad thing that's going to happen. The problem is we still don't have affirmative messaging coming back the other way, right?
Yeah.
It's the problem I've had with Republicans around healthcare forever, which is like Obamacare is this terrible, terrible thing, but they never have that affirmative, here's our plan instead, right? And I think Democrats are just missing that whole piece. And I think the perception of Democrats is so bad. There's been a lot of polls that say if the election happened again today, Donald Trump would still win.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that, right? Like, there's so much ammo out there. Like, just pick something. Pick something. And just go for it.
Yeah, well, I'm far more moderate. I agree with you definitely that the messaging though for the left has been brutal.
It hasn't been brutal. It hasn't been there.
Yeah, well, like that's in a way brutal.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
it's been brutal, and I think we've talked a million times. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole. There's ammo on specific issues, but like you talked about, like people's opinions and we talk about vibes, right? Like especially in those larger elections, people don't want a party that isn't like proud to be American, and that doesn't come off from Democrats at all. I think there are Democrats who give off that vibe,
right.
But we've talked about that many times where it's like the messaging of Democrats has not been like patriotic, but in a different way. No, it's just been like not at all, like nothingness. It's almost like you talked about early on. I want to see democratic basically messaging, and I want to see American flags in the background. I want to see them waving in the sunlight. That's important for people, especially if you're going to pull middle ground voters who even lean right, or even conservative voters if they disagree about specific things with the current administration. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, you all should catch Pete Buttigieg on Andrew Schultz's podcast. He went on there and did quite good, and he is still the only Democrat who I have any modicum of faith in. Did we do a recording with since Cory Booker's thing? That was good, too. Like, more stuff like that. That was good. I'm not a huge Cory Booker fan, but, like...
When I said there are certain Democrats who do meet that vibe, Pete Buttigieg was who I was thinking about.
He's the one.
Yeah. It's good.
Let's move on to the Pope. Unless you had more. But
I think one thing that we should discuss, because this came out like less than a day ago, is deportations, mass deportations.
Oh, we should probably get that a little bit, right? I've kind of danced around this in class still, just because
it's a touchy subject.
It's not even touchy. I just don't feel it's a hard thing to be educated on, right?
Yeah. I think if you take a zoomed out view of it, you can start. It all depends on your opinion, right? So one thing to note, and we talked about this really early on, America's immigration policy is shockingly loose.
Yes.
Not even a negative way. It depends on your opinion. But if you just compare it to other Western modern countries, ours is wildly loose with like very little rules.
I wouldn't say it's generous. I wouldn't say it's necessarily loose per se. Like the rules are there, but they're it's easier to become an American than it is to.
When I looked at the list of like all the developed countries, ours was one of the most just like, if you're here when you're born, you're just that.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter. It's the easiest one to kind of become a citizen. So you can have your opinions about that and make some good arguments. Right. It's harder to make really great arguments about mass deportations, especially if you're not a violent criminal with like a proven record of crime.
Well, let me even steal me on this.
There's a lot of different ways.
I'll be the conservative here, right? Which is I am sympathetic to the view that like if you're in the country and you're not supposed to be, like you're breaking the law, and we should.
Yeah, I guess that qualifies.
Like I think that is again something I don't think Democrats have dealt with very well, and I don't think it's a point conservatives make enough. I think just saying that as simply as I just said it takes a lot of the sting out of it. No, this is also
violent.
Like, weirdly enough, I think part of the reason I haven't talked about it a ton is it's also the policy that affects me weirdly directly, just because I have so many international students, and so I'm like worried about their ability to go home this summer and then come back into the country and continue to get an education. So I have a few students in particular that I think it'll be fine, but I don't know that it'll be fine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's super swirly, right? And I think, we talk about things that get at, the soul of what we are as a country. And it's one of those issues that I didn't care about a ton, but I'm starting to get more radicalized is too big of a word, but I'm starting to like have proper opinions on it from that place of like, this is what I grew up to believe America could and should be. In terms of the way we're deporting people, in the way due process has been ignored, in the way that a full-on Supreme Court order has been ignored, uh, the way the Constitution is written, intentionally or not, I'm very curious if you gave the Founding Fathers another swing at this, if they would have changed some of the verbiage in there. But because America is such a weird country, it was very hard to say, like, citizens of the United States. Because the United States, like, who's considered a citizen? Like, that question was, like, actually really hard to answer in 1786, right? These things are all getting kind of hashed out in real time. So a lot of the language they have is just persons in the United States. So when we look at the Bill of Rights and you look at, those first 10 amendments and then everything else, they apply to everybody, whether you're here legally or not. So that means if you are picked up by ICE, like, you do have a right still to go through the system. You have to be put in front of a judge.
Yeah.
You have to go through all of that.
So updates from 15 hours ago. That's why I brought this up, because it popped up on my feed.
Thank you. Yeah, what do we got?
So basically, I was reading an article about a win. Basically, it's called Donald Trump's win over on mass deportations, and some really important things to consider.
Who's this article coming out of? Who's our source?
This is coming out of, I just had it.
It is win in scare quotes.
Not really. The whole thing's in quotes. I think it's from Newsweek.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just going to read what it says. It's not a lot of opinionated stuff. It's very just like,
Sure,
this happened, this
I
happened.
like it. I'm into it.
So, one, a federal judge upholded the use of Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal immigrants. Right?
Okay.
So, Stephanie Haynes ruled that Trump's administration can use the 1798 Aliens Enemies Act to deport Venezuelan nationals affiliated with a specific gang, the Tren de Aragua.
Yes.
Let me try this again.
Tren de Aragua.
Tren de Aragua. Thank you. Designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. So help out that argument. Due process protections were mandated, though.
Yes.
While permitting deportations, Judge Haynes ordered that individuals receive at least 21 days' notice to access legal counsel, contrasting with the government's previous 12 to 24-hour notice period. So a much longer due process period is afforded to them. There's a limited scope of ruling. I'm almost done with these, I promise. These are all important.
You're good.
Limited scope.
I know about this more. So we're good.
There's a limited scope of ruling. The decision applies specifically to non-naturalized Venezuelans aged 14 and older and does not extend to other nationalities or gangs. So this is specific to the gang we talked about. Contrasting legal outcomes, the ruling differs from previous decisions in New York, Texas, and Colorado, where judges blocked similar applications of the Alien Enemies Act. Hearing that come out of Texas actually is very shocking to me. I don't mean that in an insulting way to Texas. It's just,
no, I mean,
of all of the negative things that come with illegal immigration, they are the first ones to get hit by it, like by far.
For sure. And
so
there's
it's
also
just surprising
something called court shopping, which is where you will strategically try to find a court system that is like more favorable to your court case, particularly when it comes to federal stuff, right? So like depending on which district court takes your case, those judges will maybe be a little bit more conservative or liberal, and both sides do this. And this isn't even like, well, both sides. No, like both sides for sure do this, and it's
always
an issue.
Do this, yeah.
And so Trump loves to run his cases through Texas because they tend to be helpful.
Last two pieces really important.
Yeah, get in there.
Ongoing legal challenges. ACL plans to appeal this decision.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about this. If they are related to a very violent gang, why would you want to appeal
I'll
that?
give you the lowdown when we get...
Last one?
Yep.
It just gives precedent now. The fact that he won this means he has precedent to do this again with different gangs, anything else on a terrorist watch list. It's just,
yes, that's a good...
It's the precedent. It's the, well, we already did it. Somebody already said we could. So why not this time?
Really interesting court case, and this judge, I think, was trying to be a little clever with this one. So Advisory Opinions is a really good podcast. If you want to, like, inhale Supreme Court knowledge straight into your brain, they do a really good job on this. And so the way they were kind of talking about it, and I might butcher this a little bit, but I think the spirit is there. is the second part of that ruling invalidates the first, right? Where the reason they were trying to do this under the Alien Enemies Act is to try to avoid all the stuff that they said they had to do in that second part of that ruling. So it's like, yes, you can capture them under this ruling. You still have to put them through the ringer. And the whole reason you were trying to use the Alien Enemies Act was
to avoid the ringer.
to avoid having to go through this process. So
yeah, okay, that's a good point.
I think what you said about precedent is interesting. But again, if the whole point is like you still have to take them to court, because here's the whole thing. The idea is we don't want them barging through your door right now, grabbing Margot, and then saying she's a part of, Tren de Aragua.
Yeah.
With no evidence, and then by the time we figure out that she's, just Margot.
Yeah. She's in Venezuela.
I don't know, maybe she is part of. Maybe she's got a second double life. Yeah.
I mean,
but
she's
that's
a
the
mysterious
part, right?
one.
Is to make sure that you don't accidentally scoop up someone that you're not supposed to scoop up.
Well, it talked about like age 14 or age 14 and older.
Right.
Is in these gangs, children are taken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you would be deporting a child who was forced into a gang or pulled into a that does happen. So a due process makes total sense. 12 to 24 hours is shocking.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, it's like who would argue against getting violent criminals out of the country who weren't technically citizens, right? It's like
the thing is like being as crazy as you want to be in terms of scooping people up, but you need to have before you actually send them somewhere.
Yeah.
You need to also I would way rather these people be in like American prisons than them being abroad. Like I feel like we just have better security. Like El Chapo, if we would have put him into like a Texas prison, would not have escaped like 6 or 7 times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, no, interesting court ruling. I have a fun fact about the Alien Enemies Act.
It's got a great name.
Let me double check when this thing got written. Did a lot of live research today.
I thought it was 1798.
1798.
Yeah.
Do you know why it was passed in 1798?
Why?
I think it had to do. It was before the War of 1812, but there was some conflict going on in the colonies. And so the way the Alien Enemies Act is supposed to work is, let's say we're going to war with France, and there's been a sea battle off of the coast of Maine, and some French guy washes up in Maine. The idea is supposed to be like, if we're at war with a country, it gives us guidance on how to handle like nationals of that country who end up in the United States.
Yeah.
Or like more specifically, like combatants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is like a wild way to. I almost want to give Trump credit for like finding this thing and like blowing the dust off and be like, you know what, let's give this a shot. But not at all what this law was meant to be able to do. Same thing the way the 14th Amendment wasn't supposed to be like citizenship policy.
I will say,
it was a solution to slavery.
Based on what I'm seeing and reading about it right now, it's close, right? Like, because it's a warring nation is what it's for.
Yeah. No,
organized terrorist organizations. You're like right there.
Yeah.
You're like literally right there. But it makes sense why you have to be specific, obviously.
Right. And then you gotta, that's why you gotta label them officially a terrorist group, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the Pope real quick, and we'll get out of here.
Pope, baby.
For those that you don't know, I'm cradle Catholic. There's been uproar in the Catholic community.
Over Midwest Pope?
No, the cradle Catholics. So this is a new term. It's a new banner. People who were raised Catholic, whether they still go to church or not. And I've got some issues there, but there's like a schism within the Catholic Church between cradle Catholics who tend to be more liberal. Think like I'm not gonna say names, but and then like either convert Catholics, but people call them trad Catholics, which is like the J.D. Vances of the world, people who are like formerly evangelical. Who have converted over to Catholicism. And the problem is, these people who convert over, as a Catholic, if you feel like that's the way you want to express your faith, you're more than welcome. I'm not gonna say no to anybody. But they're bringing a lot of that evangelical like spirit with them,
Hmm.
and they stick out wildly. Because if you've ever been to a Catholic mass, like circa 10, 15 years ago at least, it's a very like no one looks at each other sort of thing.
Mm.
Like it's a very quiet personal experience. So to see people come out and be like very showy about their faith is very weird. This has nothing to do with the Pope. I just needed to get out like this culture war is happening, and it has dominated my TikTok.
Mm.
Um, because it's weird because a lot of people who are maybe a bit more casual about their religion are like stepping up because there's a new wave of people trying to spin it in a different way. Um, and so it's been really interesting to watch the back and forth on TikTok. It's now too much Catholic stuff. I need to go back to the funny stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, new Pope, Pope Leo from my alma mater, Villanova University. I know. It actually does make me appreciate having gone to Villanova a little bit more. I
Yeah.
don't know why. It feels maybe a little silly, but like I went
Chicago
where the
White
Pope went.
Chicago White Sox fan.
He is a White Sox fan. He's a
Don't
Midwesterner.
Midwestern
He's a
baby.
Midwesterner. But more importantly to me,
NBD whatever.
he spent 20
Oh,
years in Peru helping poor people.
that's dope.
So like
That's
at
really
the end
cool.
of the day, he's at least a good dude. You know what I mean?
Love. He came out with a tweet, by the way,
Yeah.
and this is going to be pretty controversial. He came out in support of peace.
Oh,
So pretty cutting opinion. He's starting out hot.
he does want peace.
He wants peace, guys. So
He wants
just
a piece of peace.
keep that down.
Probably wants the
Keep
whole
that in mind.
piece.
Yeah.
Um,
The amount of like American pride stuff coming out from people who
the
aren't even
memes have been
Christian or Catholic,
so
but
good.
the memes have been on fire.
can I make kind of a cultural point here, though?
Everyone's got Love Sosa over everything because he's a Chicago Pope. So everything is just Love Sosa across the board.
He's like everything's really good, really funny, much love. My joke has been the draft thing with the 267th pick, the Cardinals select. That's been my thing that I've been putting out there. The Donald Trump dress as the Pope that the White House page put out.
He's
Not
got to
cool.
stop.
It's only funny when it's someone else. If you make yourself the Pope, then that's really creepy and weird. Like, don't do that. That was not well received by anybody.
Yeah. It's just wild. It's like shock value funny.
I wouldn't even call it funny. I'm not
It's
gonna
like
go on
what they
record.
do?
No, that was not good. Someone put the Pope in the championship like game-winning 3 for Villanova. He comes on the court and drains it. In the
yeah.
Oh, it was tremendous.
That's a good one. Yeah, I saw that.
I guess a little bit of inside baseball in terms of like the Vatican. This is all stuff I've learned in the last couple of weeks, so this is not like just stuff I knew. But it seems so. There's kind of a parallel here. So a lot of our court system's gone a little bit more conservative since Trump's first term.
Yeah.
Because one thing Obama didn't do great was appoint judges to these federal judge seats. So Trump was able to go in and fill a whole bunch of people that he really liked. It seems like the same thing kind of happened in the Vatican over the last 13 years with Pope Francis. Is he was really filling that those cardinal seats with cardinals who kind of thought in the same way as him. So a lot of people consider Francis a pretty progressive pope. Progressive for a Catholic, I need to put that in like all caps, right?
Yeah.
It is a big deal to the extent that we've gone from like gay people are going to hell to now being like, look, it's not something that the church is going to support, but these are still people that we want to welcome into our communities and stuff like that, right? Like, it's at least
It's different than being actively hostile.
right, and we're going to center the fact that these are like human beings and people of God instead of like their sexuality, right? Like, even if we don't agree with that, we're going to put that over here and like address the person in front of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at least that style is going to continue. So that's good. He's also Augustinian. So if you're not familiar with Catholicism, they have, when you go to become a priest or a nun, you typically will join like an order, right? I don't want to call them Harry Potter houses. There's more than 4, and you pick one, right? But they all do something. They all have like a little bit of a different focus, right? So they each kind of have like a different mission of the church that they kind of go. Most Catholic universities in the United States are Jesuit, right? This includes Xavier University, Creighton, basically the whole Big East that's not Villanova. Villanova is unique in that it's the only Augustinian one. Um, and Augustinians are known for like their public service, right? All of them are to an extent, but they're known for like community building, and this kind of thing. So he comes from kind of a unique background in terms of Catholicism, but in terms of the type of background you'd want for someone who's now got to manage, the Vatican, a worldwide religion of like millions and millions of people, and be a spokesman for that, I think that background is really good. So,
Yeah.
a lot of I'm very curious. Like, I would love to see the votes. They get burned immediately, so there's no record of who voted for who. But I would love to see that as like a political science person, just for like the kick, just to analyze. But it happened very quickly, and so it seems like he was kind of a high choice going into it. And I'm very curious how much his being American had an impact on the choice of the Vatican, right?
Yeah.
When cardinals make those decisions, they're supposed to kind of like pray on it, and maybe talk to other people, but it's not. It used to be really political back in like the Middle Ages, but now it's supposed to be more of a spiritual thing who you vote for. Obviously, you need to negotiate a little bit if you're actually going to finally vote for somebody. But I'm very curious how much. Francis was not a fan of Trump and JD Vance. There's that joke that JD Vance killed the Pope, right?
Yeah.
The current Pope Leo had, before he was Pope, he had gone out and kind of challenged JD Vance on some issues. So I'm wondering if it was weighing on the Cardinals, like, we need to put an American leader into the global, back into global politics, because the Pope is very much a political position.
Yeah.
If we need to put an American into global politics that doesn't have this message, right? Someone who's going to be welcoming to refugees.
Balancing scales a little bit. Yeah.
And I really don't know, because, that's not really supposed to be how the Pope should work. You shouldn't really be voting for a Pope for political reasons.
You have to think, though, his background of just like being very people-centered and like...
Yeah.
That had to come into play, especially considering like...
Right.
Not even just the current administration, but the amount of othering that we do as a society. It almost seems like he is the antidote to that. Of like,
Yes.
no, like everybody. Very more holistic.
But yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. I would love to understand what the thought process was. Because like that's the thing too, I think you're making a good point. If he was a jerk, right? And was just super into like the theology, I'll put scare quotes around that, like the practices of the church within mass, in terms of like, oh, should you like pray like this or like that? I don't think you become Pope that way, right? Like, I think you become Pope by pounding the pavement, spending 20 years in Peru doing what he was doing. I mean, he's an American Pope, but he's spent most of his life outside the United States, right? He's been around the world trying to help the people who need it.
Have you seen that video of him at the World Series when the White Sox were in it, like 2005 or whatever?
No, I didn't.
He's like, you see him like, he's like behind the net. He's like at the game watching he's got like all the gear on.
Hey, good for him, man.
Yeah, I love it.
Priests be out there, man.
Dude, Midwest Pope.
Just because you see a guy with a beer in their hand does not mean that they're not
Midwest Pope, dude. I'm so for Midwest. I want to start a rap album called Midwest Pope.
Go for it.
Or something. Like Midwest Pope, dude. That's actually just a great rap name.
Make the first song like Christian rap.
Yeah.
And then make the rest just the most sexy red T Grizzly. Like, it just takes a hard curve.
Yeah.
Because then what will happen is like all the religious kids will be like, oh, here, I'll show this to my mom. I'll let her listen to the first song. She'll know the album's cool.
And then
she'll know all this stuff on
run the bangers afterwards. Yeah.
No, I'm excited. It'll be good. I'm happy with the guy. Not that they were asking me.
Yeah.
But again, as someone who
signed off on that,
who's Catholic and identifies with that pretty actively as part of my identity, like, kind of hold my breath. There's a couple people who seem like they were much more on that traditionalist path, and I'm like, come on, like, don't set us back. Like, we were making some good progress.
Yeah.
Give me someone who, when I see him on the... And again, I don't know that the Vatican needs to be that political, but at least just in the sense of, give me someone welcoming. Give me someone who's...
You almost want somebody who's just not... Like, the way you're saying it actually is you want somebody who's not political.
Yes.
Like, yes. I don't want you leaning one direction or the other, but Yeah, I think you're making a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like because again, I think if you're welcoming is a word we've said a lot. I think that's a good way to think about it. Is like if you're that person who's, he's been an advocate of, I'm forgetting the word for it, but reaching out to like working with other Christian denominations, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're Episcopalian, whatever. Like, can we work together to make something good happen? Cool, let's do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, it's good. Popes matter if you're not religious. There was a really good TikTok I saw of a guy talking about, I'm not religious, but I take religion seriously. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good way to think about it. He was, I think, a historian, or he's doing history content. But he's like, even if I don't believe in God, like, I have to at least understand how these beliefs affect the world, right? And like how religious
Yeah.
people and religion impacts the way we see the world and stuff like that. And I think that was a really good um, take from that person. Even if you're not Catholic, again, I have a lot of pride right now. Um, but like the Pope matters, man, and not in the way that maybe it used to. He's not giving people the right to like invade other countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Middle Ages was really weird for Catholicism. It's something that we probably got to reconcile more directly at some point.
It's come on, statute of limitations, Middle Ages. I guess I don't need people going back into what happened in the Middle Ages and then wanting to like rehash it. That Middle Ages.
I think it's important if you're drawing the line from like Jesus to today to at least address this middle part where
Acknowledge it happened. Yeah.
we were like selling people indulgences to get them into heaven
That
and
was
stuff like
wild.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving people the right to like conquer each other and stuff like
Yeah.
that. No, the Pope used to be crazy powerful. Not as much anymore, but again, as a global leader for one of the largest religions of the world,
I think it's still the largest religion in the world.
I feel like there's a lot of.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some of those countries that.
Oh, I guess you're thinking Catholicism, not Christianity?
I don't even know if Christianity is. I'm googling.
Googling. Pull that up, Xavier.
Christianity, as like a whole thing, is number one at 31%. Islam is not that far behind it at 24.1,
Yeah.
and then Hindu at 15. Not a lot of Jews. I thought there'd be more Jews.
Hey, becoming Jewish is difficult.
It's really hard.
Yeah, you gotta do a lot of work. So it's probably more of a barrier to entry thing, huh?
2.3 billion Christians on the world. If I'm doing my math right, only 10. No way. I feel like that chart can't be real. I think it's 10 million Jews. Feels really low.
That does seem really low.
It is hard to become Jewish though. Like they aren't out
yeah.
there recruiting the same way.
No,
other
yeah, they're
religions
not at all.
are. But yeah, I was trying to make that Pope section a little bit more political because it's a politics podcast. Point being, Pope's good. PodSave did like a really good bit on it. If you want more content around that, in terms of like again, it's from sort of the Democrat perspective, and I don't know, they take the piss out of it a little bit, but I think if you want like a really aggressive political take on it, they've got a good section of their pod that they devote.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, religion's important, even if you're not religious. Cool. That's all I got, man. I think we covered.
I think we crushed
We
it
got a
today.
little bonus topic in there on the immigration stuff. I wasn't even thinking
Yeah.
about talking about that today, but we did. I'll let right bang on an hour. I apologize
Yeah,
if
we
you guys
nailed
been
it.
hearing my lawnmower. Not my lawnmower, my neighbor mowing the lawn. But
I can't hear it at all. I think you're great.
all right.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
That was our episode on tariffs, volatility, local elections, the Pope, and immigration.
And we'll
And
try to have
more-
more episodes more frequently.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time of year.
It's been a lot, man. Golly. Hey, you know what? Good job, listener. I
Yeah.
bet you had a crazy month too.
That is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did it. You're here listening to us. You had some amount of free time to devote to an hour listening to me and my friend.
Yeah. Great
So,
work.
Thank you. For
We're
giving us
proud
that
of you.
hour.
It's sometimes things go well, sometimes things are tough. You're gonna get through it. We believe in you.
I won't even say the month was bad. I got a lot done. I was just
So busy.
Yeah.
So busy.
It's actually really nice because I did a lot. Now I feel like I've earned my summer vacation.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Take it easy, everybody.
Bye, everyone.